Good afternoon. So we will get started with a warm-up right away. Today we are going to choose a letter from the alphabet, and we're going to turn that letter into a character. And there's no wrong way to do this, just using your imagination. So I'm going to start with the first letter of the alphabet, just because. So, good afternoon. If you're joining right now, you're just choosing a letter of the alphabet and using that as kind of the jumping off point to create a character. So you can either look at the shape of the letter and use that as an element in your character. So for example, maybe I do 3 A's, kind of like horns. Maybe I'll do like an upside down A, because it's looking like a bird to me. Basically, you're just using the letter, the shape as a prompt to create a new character. Okay? And maybe he has a chubby belly. And some wings. I don't know. This is just the character I came up with off the top of my head based on the letter A. You can also make the letter A the actual character. So you can draw it bigger, draw it blockier. Give it eyes. And this little hole in the A looks like its mouth. So maybe I'll add a nose there. Okay, so you can decide which kind of letter character you're going to do. Are you going to use the letter as an element that you might repeat? Or are you going to use the letter as the character itself? You can try both ways. Maybe you can combine the two together. So maybe his arms are also A's. If you wanted an extra challenge, see if you can make a character only using the letter A. Okay, this is just a warm-up. Creating characters using the letter A. You can choose a different character if you like, or a different letter if you like. But I just chose A. So for the challenge, I'm only going to use the A shape, but I'm going to add a lowercase a as well. So maybe I'll start with the lowercase a because it's got a round shape that looks like a head. And I'm going to use a uppercase A for like a body. And some upside down A's for legs. Now they look like shorts. And some A's for arms. Looks kind of like a yoga pose. And maybe I'll turn that into an A as well. And a little small lowercase a for a nose. And another lowercase a for eyes. Okay, so that's 3 different ways you can try to create characters using one kind of design element. In this case, we're using the letter A. This one I used the element in repeated ways, and I also added other strokes as I saw fit. For this way, I used the letter itself as the main body of the character. And for this one, I challenged myself to only use upper and lowercase a as all the shapes. And you can rotate, you can flip, however you like. Okay, and that is the warm-up for today for our doodle along. Today we are going to draw a toucan. Toucan is a tropical bird with a really large beak, really colorful. And we're going to start with basic shapes as usual. So for the toucan, let's do a more realistic one first, and then I'll show you how to make like a even cuter one. So we'll start with a little head shape, which is circular. And we're going to draw like an oval shape for kind of the neck area. So head shape, neck shape, and body shape, the bigger oval. And for the tail, kind of like a triangle without the tip, which is a trapezoid. If you need, you can draw the whole triangle in. So that's kind of where the tail's going to be. Okay, so again, head shape, neck shape, body shape, tail shape, and beak shape. So if you can imagine like a kind of a rounded triangle, and this one's a smaller triangle rounded the other way. Oh, actually kind of rounds the same way. So just a triangle, but thinner. Thinner triangle, thicker triangle with a rounded top. Okay. And we're going to draw a tree branch that goes across kind of where these two shapes intersect, because we want to draw claws and a place for the toucan to sit. So just two lines to show there's a branch there. Okay, hopefully that's not too fast. Let me know if you need me to slow down a little bit. Before we add more details, I'll just kind of draw two little ovals to show where the claws are going to be. And the claws kind of help the toucan stay on the branch. Okay, so now that we have these basic shapes, we're going to round it out a little bit. And I'm actually going to make the beak a little bit bigger, so it's kind of like at the same level as the top of the head, because they have really big beaks. Okay, so I just made the triangle of the beak, the rounded part, a little bit extended, kind of close to the top of the head. And just going around the shapes we drew. Going to smooth it out a little bit. Okay. So, we'll just review really quickly while you catch up here. We drew basic shapes for the head, the neck, and the body, and the tail. And the beak is kind of like a triangular shape with a bit of a curve. And the bottom of the beak is like a thinner triangle, think it turns down, so you can make it bend or curve downwards. So basically this line of the beak and this line of the beak, if you imagine that the beak is closed, they should kind of line up. Okay, and we added a branch kind of at the level where the body shape and the tail shape kind of intersect. And then we drew little ovals for placeholders for where the claws are going to be. Okay, and then I'm just starting to go around the basic shapes here. I'm stopping where there's a branch. And on the other side here, so the chin, I don't know if it's called the chin of the bird. And neck area here. And actually gonna make his body a little bit fatter this way, so it looks like he's sitting properly. Okay, so far so good. Around this area is where his eyeball is gonna be. So I just drew kind of a bigger circle and then a circle in the middle. Okay. And kind of around this area, you're gonna start drawing kind of a marking. So the toucan I'm looking at has like black feathers and some yellow coloring here. So we're just kind of dividing which part is going to be the yellow part. And I'm using this curve that I kind of drew in here as kind of like where to stop for the yellow color. So this part here is yellow. And this part is black. And his beak is super colorful too. So the beak is like green, yellow, orange, and the tip of his beak has a bit of red, if you feel like coloring it in later. Okay, and I'm just gonna fluff up his head a little bit with some jagged lines so it doesn't look super smooth. Give it a bit more texture. Okay, and his talons, I don't know what they're called, feet. So there's a bigger toe and then two smaller toes. Bigger toe, two smaller toes on either side. And then you can draw in the rest of your tree branch, and remember that tree branches aren't totally straight, so use some of your wiggly lines. You can even have like a secondary branch growing off of there if you like. Maybe you want a branch underneath. It's up to you to make your tree grow. Okay. And if you wanted to add knots in your trees, remember it's like a little spiral, and then draw some light lines around it. That will give it the impression that there's a little knot on your wood there. basically the same shape that we already drew. The only difference, if you want to draw a few little lines at the bottom to make it look like the feathers. And all this is black. I think there's probably a wing here if you want to define it. In my picture, it just all looks black, so I'm kind of making a guess. And I'm just shading mine in really quickly, but you can leave it for now and take your time to really color it in afterwards. Okay, so that's basic toucan. To make a cuter version, we're gonna go back to the basic shapes, but we're gonna make the head bigger as usual. So let's see what that might look like. So let's start with a big head and shorten the neck area, just have a body. And I'm still gonna have a giant beak. So again, it's kind of like a triangle with an extra rounded part. Okay, so I went kind of fast there, but basically I did a giant head. I left out the neck shape that we did here, and I just did a small body shape to make a more cartoony, cuter toucan. Okay, so top of the beak, bottom of the beak, and you can give it some more cartoony feathers, give him a big eyeball, big circle, and here you can make him have those fancy anime eyes if you like. I'll give him some sparkles in his eye. I'll give him some stars, I guess. And then just continuing along the back here. His chin, again, I don't know if that's the actual term for this part of the toucan's body, but chin. And the chest area here, that's a different color. Looks kind of like a bib, I guess. And so if you compare kind of where I've drawn the line, it's a little bit more than halfway across this body shape. And then I'm going to continue from here and curve around. So now this part is the yellow part that is here, and then this part around his head is where the black feathers will be. And I'll give him a wing here. Okay, and his other wing will be on the other side. You might see like the hint of it. And actually want to make him a little bit shorter and chubbier. So erase here. There you can see both now. And the tail I'm going to draw coming out in this direction, but it's the same kind of shape. And standard cartoon bird feet. So that's a more realistic toucan into a cuter, more cartoony toucan. But in both cases we use basic shapes. It's really helpful if you practice looking at reference pictures so you can identify the shapes, because once you know them, then you can figure out how you can change it and alter it to make your own kind of characters. Okay? Just erase those lines so you can see the beak a little bit better. There you go. And I think toucans eat fruit, so you can put a little berry or something in his beak. Just a little circle, a little quick line. It's gonna be like a cherry, I guess. And the stem of the cherry. If you want to be extra, give them extra food, you can draw his other cherry kind of hanging down from here. So it's just another circle. Okay? So that's 2 different toucans. We looked at basic shapes of a more realistic one first, and then we tried to figure out which proportions and which shapes we would use for a more cartoony version. My challenge for you today is to draw the rainforest where these toucans or your toucans live. Maybe you can draw a whole family of toucans. See if you can draw them in different positions now that you know some of the basic shapes. Okay, my inspirational quote for today is unknown. I don't know who the source is, but art is the highest form of hope. So I hope you have fun doodling for the rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.